Welcome to Brands on Tap, the podcast where we discuss all things brand related.
So whether you're a business owner, industry expert, or simply interested, this podcast is for you.
So yeah, what is a marketing agency?
So marketing agency is that kind of external professional in their field kind of person you can lean on as a company, whether you're an in-house marketer kind of outsourcing some of the work, or whether you just have an agency to do everything marketing wise for you. I guess they differ from in-house, but we'll kind of get into that. But yeah, they're just professionals in their field and basically an extension of your team. That's how we like to paint ourselves anyway.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best way to work, to be that kind of natural extension.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Yeah, I just feel like it's best for everyone involved then.
Yeah, I think it's normally just a time when hopefully businesses realise that they need to, in order to achieve their goals and objectives, they haven't got the expertise to do that most often. So that's the whole point in us being here, or any other marketing agency, to put that strategic plan in place and then kind of implement as much or as little as they need to achieve those goals and measure it. So
yeah, that's the thing. For some clients, it can just be like a natural top up from an agency to cover that insufficiency in house. Or sometimes they can literally handle everything. Yeah. It really depends.
Exactly.
But then there's lots of different types of marketing agency anyway, which we'll get into later. But yeah, I feel like that's a
good top level summary
overview
of what a marketing agency is.
Yeah.
And, I think the main thing is a lot of people don't use marketing agencies because they don't realise the benefit of having one, which is also something we're going to get into later on in the episode.
Yeah. I think there's also that thing that, like we've said it 100 times, of the value of marketing. And if that isn't seen, that marketing can kind of be put down to an afterthought almost sometimes. So yeah, agencies come in to kind of help ensure that you're on track to achieve what you need, like your sales targets or whatever KPIs you have, with marketing as a way to do that rather than it being an afterthought. Yeah. And like something you do after, because something's not working, it should be consistent.
Yeah. And ideally, before you engage with a marketing agency, you should have a business plan and at least goals and objectives, rather than coming to us or any other person
and having no idea,
having no clue of your direction.
Yeah, but then also, there's, I guess it's things and roundabouts, like chicken and the egg kind of vibe, because some people just don't have an idea yet because they need to do that whole market research phase, which I mean, a lot of agencies can help with anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So chicken and the egg.
Yeah, I think sometimes it works in our favour when someone comes to us. I say our favour is in the sense that we can help someone if they come to us and say, oh, we don't know what our goals and objectives should be. Yeah. And like you say, we can then look at market research. But,
and set achievable, like justified targets rather than mile high ones that potentially are just out of reach for your first year or something.
Quite.
Kind of
yeah. I guess it's better to not know your objectives rather than come to an agency with objectives which you cannot ever afford to achieve at the moment.
That's true. Yeah. And we can kind of, at least at that point as well, give some outline of what kind of spend you would need to achieve those KPIs. Yeah. What kind of spend you'd have to put to it. Yeah. Because otherwise, it's how long is a piece of string, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm just really coming at it today with the analogies.
Makes it easier for people to understand as well. So should we go into what the different types of marketing agency are?
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. I mean, we'll have to start with us. It's only right.
Yeah.
But we're like a full service. Yeah. Integrated. We like the word integrated now.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it's industry standard to say integrated. And when you even like search up definition of full service marketing agency, it literally says an agency with integrated services. So it kind of says what it is on the tin.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It basically just covers every ground that you would need. And then there's also like, obviously they have specialisms in certain areas, but overall they can cover everything basically, or we cover everything from web design, marketing, everything in between that, PR, etc.
So all the channels really.
Everything.
And everything you need to create the campaigns, implement them. So it's pretty much web, creative and marketing is how we kind of narrow that down, as well as media. So that's pretty much the full service, and that's, I guess, beneficial if you just want to go to one place and have it all handled.
Shop.
Yeah, we always say that, don't we? Yeah, with a one-stop shop.
Yeah, as tacky as the term sounds, but that's what exactly what it is. Yeah, it takes out all the faff of having to procure different agencies and have them work together. Yeah, because I mean, unless there's a project manager role in that, it's really difficult to get everyone on the same page. Yeah, so it cuts out that middleman. Really, I mean, then we're the middlemen, so.
Yeah.
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 Basically. So that kind of leads us on to the segments within that, and other agencies have their own specialisms. So I think the main one that people go to now is a digital marketing agency.
Yeah.
So
that covers everything digital, SEO, PPC, social media, the whole digital spectrum. Often web, they integrate and do web design and development at the same time. So if you go to a digital marketing agency, hopefully they may offer web functions as well.
Yeah. Which,
as part of that.
That's really beneficial, really, especially when it comes to like tracking and stuff. To have that kind of functionality in the same agency, at least they can deal with all the tracking of your campaigns as well.
And they've got the technical know-how to do it easily and quickly, and again probably more cost efficiently. But that's often, I guess, phrased as well actually as like a digital agency, which seems to be growing in popularity. I think that term of digital agency, as opposed to say digital marketing agency, you've kind of got the umbrella term of digital agency now, which encompasses the same thing.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. But then part of me is like, in my head, digital agency means like purely web. Like, am I only going to deal with these people over Zoom? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, are they real people?
In person. Yeah.
So next on the list for us is creative agencies, which obviously we have a leg of what we do as creative. But yeah, there's some agencies you can go to that like purely specialize in the kind of creative implementation to complement your marketing.
Exactly that. So they could do the whole brand exercise, create a brand logo, brand tone of voice, the whole brand strategy, all the brand collateral, and then pass it to a marketing agency or whoever else to implement it. So
and to kind of carry that forward and communicate that rebrand or facelift.
And then we've got web agencies specific, which kind of says what it is.
Minefield in itself.
Web design, development, hosting.
Yeah, and there's so many different types of that. Like whether it's like someone that builds custom or someone using like a platform.
Yeah, WordPress, Shopify.
Yeah.
Wix,
or even like, what's the other one? Squarespace.
Yeah.
Squarespace? Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many, isn't there? But I think, web, even app development, things like that, custom portals, hubs.
Yeah.
Which we also offer.
I love a portal. Shameless plug.
Yeah, shameless plug. But you've got your web agencies as well.
Yeah. Which are really important. But like, they can kind of work alongside everything else that you've got going on anyway. Like obviously we offer it all in one place, which is a benefit. But a lot of people have their web dealt with elsewhere. Yeah. Kind of thing.
Yeah, which is really common actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that more now, I think.
Yeah, I think the specialised service-specific agencies are definitely more popular than perhaps the integrated ones.
Yeah.
Because naturally, it is harder to coordinate all these skills into one agency, which, fortunately for us, we have got that. But, you do find that I think it's most common that you've got maybe a brand agency, a marketing agency. But the problem is with all of these agencies, I think, is no matter what agency you go to, they're all going to be different in their own way. You can't just search digital agency or creative agency and expect to see the exact same service offer.
They're all very different. And even just looking at, we look all the time, but everyone's offering's always changing as well. And then adding new things all the time.
Yeah.
So it's, worth always having a bit of a shop around really and seeing what is the best fit for you. If you want to be more of a hand it over and let it be dealt with, perhaps a full service is more for you.
Yeah.
If you don't have a project manager kind of in place.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that projects we do don't need a project manager, but...
Yeah. Or even if you just feel like you want to go to it might be that you come across someone, which I feel like happens a lot, is, word of mouth. People find, say, a brand agency that they really like.
Yeah, or they've done nice work before kind of thing.
And they will want to just go to them because they know that they've done something for someone else.
Yeah,
that's the reason to go with them, or a website or anything like that.
Yeah.
Which kind of lends itself to the whole focusing on a specific service area, really.
Yeah, no, that's true. What's next?
PR.
Yeah.
Public
PR
relations.
is, I mean, I guess PR is, I feel like people not confuse, but put PR and marketing under the same umbrella sometimes when actually they're kind of, they're very different.
Yeah.
In the sense that, I mean, at least with like digital marketing, you can kind of predict what you're going to get out of it.
Yeah.
PR is so difficult.
Yeah.
Even just the outreach to see what lands is quite complex.
Yeah. So they're going to handle your crisis management, your
which we hope you never need,
but your
your
press releases in local press, getting in the right audiences in magazines, any sort of public
online
materials,
PR.
really.
And a lot of the time,
Partnerships.
depending on your business as well, it'll be really specific to your audience. So if you were a marine, you'd be in like marine specific publications, etc. But they've got the connections to do that. So yeah.
And it's just creating that voice, isn't it? It's trying to get public
definitely.
reaction from material. That's the whole premise of it, really, with public relations.
Yeah, not just sitting in the dark and waiting for someone to notice you.
Yeah, exactly.
Put it on their coffee table instead.
Yeah, exactly that. And then we've got industry-specific agencies.
Yeah.
So kind of like what we've touched on a little bit with marine, say, or you would maybe have a marketing agency that specialises in public sector, B2B, B2C.
Yeah.
There's so many, variants of that. And even with web, you might find it's focusing on e-commerce versus like a service base, or, branding. It might be food and drink branding, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So I feel like we've covered like industry specific, it can be really varied, and you might find, I guess, that you're looking for an industry specific agency because you want that experience in the sector, whether that be marine, food and drink, kind of like we've listed some examples. You just want that sector specific knowledge, and there is a benefit obviously to working with an agency that has got all that experience.
Agreed.
But we'll go into that a bit later in terms of sort of what the differences between the two are, in terms of if you were to go with a specialised agency in something versus someone that maybe not as specialised or dedicated to that as such.
There's benefits to each.
There
definitely.
are. So we can dive into that.
Yeah. So I guess we should kind of go into like the benefits of procuring a marketing agency external to your own business.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to kick off with that.
Yeah. So I think the biggest one is cost effectiveness.
Yeah, so that's so true.
If you have an internal marketing team, quite often you'll find...
Or someone you're shimmying into being,
that's literally
which we're seeing a lot of.
Yeah, so, you'll have comms teams or people in completely unrelated
recruitment roles or like
sales. They've got no training in marketing whatsoever, but you do find that companies will then sort of allocate marketing responsibilities to these individuals.
It's like an add-on.
They'll be like, can you just do the social media? Or can you handle LinkedIn or whatever it might be?
True.
And then before you know it, you've kind of distributed all these tasks of email marketing.
And you've got random communications getting out to everyone.
And then you've not got one person solely responsible for marketing. All of the people may not have the understanding of it. They're self-learning and sort of trying to do their main roles and responsibilities at the same time, while trying to also learn marketing. Their company may or may not be investing in them to upskill and learn and specialise. And naturally, if you haven't got someone who is qualified in something, you can't expect them to do perhaps as good of a job potentially as someone who has been fully trained in something, had the training, upskilling, dedicated to that role and profession, and they know what they're doing. It's kind of like trying to ask someone to build a house who doesn't have a clue,
I could give it a go, but probably wouldn't be very good.
It's just like apples and oranges again. But I think it comes down to the time and investment that you pay to create maybe an in-house marketing team who still then has to offload to an agency. You could probably streamline those costs and maybe have a smaller in-house marketing team, or quite often in our case there'll be one person in-house,
like a content person kind of thing, which we find a lot now, and that's really helpful. If you're going to have one person in-house, they kind of need to be that content person a lot of the time, but they can't wear every shoe and like do everything else as well.
No, exactly. And I think if you've got one person in-house that's responsible for talking to the agency, overseeing all the marketing, knows all of the ins and outs of the internal side, that's really beneficial for then an agency to support and provide that expertise. So I think it's just weighing up, the cost efficiencies of it, because you could be spending a lot on an in-house team potentially that you've tried to migrate into marketing that don't really maybe even want to do it, don't know how to do it, and you don't know enough about the subject either to upskill them and put
true.
the budget aside to do that, because
Yeah.
you as a business owner may not understand the benefits of doing that either. So when you add all that together, plus the cost of outsourcing because of those individuals that may not know how to do their role completely, you've just got really large costs. So it's just weighing up what you can do in-house and what you know, and reviewing, I guess, as a business owner, what you can do and what you can't do, and trying to be realistic about it, and then weigh up how much would it cost me to pay a specialist agency in this versus try and upskill and create an in-house division, which I might still have to outsource against.
Yeah, so true. And when you think about it as well, your budget with an in-house marketing team, you have to pay salaries plus ad spend and any actual external spend that person will have to do anyway. Whereas with an agency, you're not paying a salary, you're paying an hourly rate potentially, or like a retainer, and then and then that spend on top. So it's not as big of a jump kind of thing to do a salary plus all of that, because that's the other thing. I think having in-house doesn't necessarily mean that you're saving money on ads. Well, you're not saving money on ad spend or media buying. It likely is going to still be the same. So that's still on top of everything that you do, whether you hire an agency or hire someone and pay a salary.
Yeah, and that's not to say that some businesses do have a great in-house marketing team and they do completely. It really well, but it just seems like a lot of the time it's not that way, unfortunately.
Yeah, I guess that's the
industry-wide.
Yeah, industry-wide to every. Yeah, completely.
Yeah. What would be your next one?
Access to like specific tools, etc. Obviously, we have every license under the sun for literally anything you could need, probably except Canva. So obviously, if you had an in-house team, you'd be having to pay those licenses. Whereas because we have them as an agency, you just get free access to them almost as when you use an agency, because they lean on those tools anyway.
Yeah.
So, and often as well, we have like, I'm trying to think of like a specific example, but like extended support. So like with Klaviyo partners, we've got increased support from Klaviyo in comparison to what an in-house team might have.
Yeah.
So
you're benefiting from not just the people, but the tools that they can use to facilitate the work for you. So it's just, again, kind of that kind of loops back to the cost effectiveness as well.
So true.
So, and they're also up to speed with all the latest tools, hopefully, as well, because tools are always updating for us.
Yeah.
And that's another value add that we can offer, really.
Yeah, it's painful for us.
We've just got to stay ahead of the curve with it.
Yeah, completely. We've done multiple episodes about staying up to date with stuff, so...
Yeah, definitely.
But, yeah.
So I think the next one would be cross-industry knowledge. So where you are working maybe with an agency that has got multiple service areas helping different industries, what they can do is kind of identify what specific patterns of behaviour, marketing and results work well, irrespective of the industry perhaps. And it's more so about looking at kind of almost the societal, the psychological, cultural element of marketing, because it's not just blanket approaches to certain industries. It's bearing in mind also what, generally speaking, based on data, say certain age demographics will benefit and engage better with other things than others. So I think because you have got that insight into all different industries, you can kind of be a bit more innovative and offer better ideas and solutions to things that maybe, you know, if you were so ingrained with that,
it's hard to step back, and
it's hard to take a step back and think, well, actually, what could I do differently? Is this really working? And apply different ideas from different industries, because it could be that the method works really well, albeit that the messaging and targeting might be different, but it's the process. And I think that, you know, you can sort of identify those trends on a top level and kind of have a bit more of a broader understanding of marketing, not just for a certain type of marketing or industry, but you can look at it as a whole. And I think that's really valuable. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's that top level view, really. Yeah. Being able to take a step back. And I think that's, again, I guess, kind of one reason why of course you can kind of go to a industry specific agency, but then even going somewhere that doesn't know your like industry as well, it gives them the opportunity to learn, and then also to kind of like take that
separate perspective kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
and that kind of ties in nicely with the whole objective thing. So, you know, when you are external to something, you can look at it objectively, which, you know, where you have got an in-house team, you can be so ingrained in that
and
area.
it's like the subconscious bias, I guess.
Like,
you don't mean it, like,
no,
but you obviously just know your audience so well, and that's so valuable in so many ways, but sometimes it can almost cloud that like way of getting a new audience through the door, because you know your existing one, perhaps it's harder to see other segments of that. So
when you're so ingrained with something, sometimes you just need someone to come and tell you how it actually is, because you just don't realise sometimes without people actually telling you from an external point of view,
completely,
which is really valuable. So that's kind of another huge benefit to having a marketing agency, is they can look at everything objectively and tell you exactly what they think as an expert and how they think you should improve upon it.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. So I think maybe we should go on to how you can basically choose the right marketing agency for you if you were to use one. And I mean, I think one thing that maybe we haven't made clear is that we're not saying that it's agency or in-house at all. Like, there is definitely not a one or the other. You can happily have either or both. So it depends how you work, and every business is so different. It's like you literally couldn't recommend one blanket approach to everyone. It just wouldn't work. So
exactly that.
But I feel like that kind of leads us on to how to basically pick the best one for you. And I think that does start with defining your needs. And you basically need that list of what you need help with. So that's really important, because without objectives and knowing where you're falling short potentially on your marketing, I feel like without knowing that, you can't really decide what kind of agency you need or whether a full service is more appropriate, etc. So and I think as an individual, it's sometimes so hard, isn't it, to try and identify that in your own behaviour, if you need something or not. But maybe that's where it's beneficial to reach out to a full service, digital agency, and just kind of test it and see what response you get from agencies, you know, and see which one you think's the best fit for you. Absolutely. And even just talking to them, and not necessarily about specific projects, but just finding out more about how they work and how they'd work with you. Because I think that's one thing, is finding an agency that genuinely shares the same passion for you, because like your business is your baby. You need someone that's going to mirror that and is going to also feel the same. And I think we feel the same about a lot of our clients, if not all of them. So, and it's, you see that, like, you build as an agency, or people within agencies build that kind of that attachment to that business too. So exactly, I think it's finding the best people that fit for you, really.
And having like a vested interest, like what you've just said. I think having passionate people involved really makes it a better cultural fit.
Because I mean, there's some businesses that are just purely like lead driven, and that's not always the best way. Like, I'm not saying that can't work for someone, but it's having people that are genuinely interested in making it work and helping you achieve your goals because they have a passion for that business or service.
Exactly. So, and it's something you should expect really from any marketing agency.
Borderline the bare minimum.
You should hope that when you reach out to a marketing agency, they're going to be passionate and want to help you and be really interested in what you have to say and what you want to achieve. And sadly, that's just not the case. So being, comparison is great when it comes to this, because at least then you can see who is the most passionate, who is the most driven to help you. And
definitely shop around. I think that's, and don't it's not an interview, like you're not going to interview them, but you do need to kind of have in the back of your mind, would you work well with these people? I think that's
first impressions count for a lot.
I
feel like you can tell quite quickly with someone if you think they're going to be personality wise, ethos, like processes, like you were saying, how they're going to like work with you. You need to understand all of that.
Definitely. Because I mean, if you leave that meeting and think, well, I don't know, one, what happens next, or two, how we would work together, then was that really well communicated in that conversation? Probably not.
So true.
So, because you don't want to like engage with someone and then realise when you actually come to work with them that you had completely different expectations of how you'd work together.
Exactly.
And like, or how they'd work with you in-house, or how they'd liaise with you, or even like the frequency of that engagement.
Exactly.
I feel like setting those boundaries early is really helpful. If you're someone that benefits off a weekly chat, or you don't really want that, you just want a monthly catch up to kind of go over everything, and then you're happy for them to make changes in the meantime, or you want to sign off everything, that needs to be set out from kind of day dot, really, to see if that's feasible.
Yeah, so I think that would be a bit of advice for people.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if anyone is listening that needs an agency,
just if anyone's listening,
then I think about what your expectations are, because I think, you know, you might not know. I mean, if you've got experience working with agencies, you probably know what your expectations are of what you want. But if you don't, then you're going to be very much led by the agency to some degree. But I think just trying to think, maybe plan a bit ahead and think, well, how often do I want to have reports? How often do I want to, like you say, have a call and stuff like that? I think it's really beneficial to just get outlined in that first contact, really.
Yeah, and like, you're not, by doing that, you're not being needy or like hindering them. Like you are genuinely just trying to ascertain if that's standard for them, or if that's even doable, like if they've got the time, who knows, or if they've got the person that can be that contact for you that you can kind of rely on. And so but then
just I think leading on from that would be evaluating their services. Yeah. Which, you know, you need to fully assess, can they actually offer what you need? Yeah. And
hopefully after you've done your little thinking at the start, you know what you need, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Or even after that first conversation. Things might come up in that conversation you've not even thought about.
Exactly. You'd hope that maybe quite often we have people get in touch with us actually that think they need maybe marketing support, but actually we, again, looking at it objectively, will say, no, we need to sort these things out first, whether it is from a branding point of view or creative, web. There's fundamentals that need to be in place, and it might be that you get in touch and you just learn more about what you actually need and what not what you thought you need.
Yeah, so exactly. And I mean, those fundamentals, I think a lot of people might come to us sometimes and think, I just need marketing support, like you said, or social media support, whatever. But if there are things genuinely wrong that could be hindering that process from a like audience point of view, those need to be tackled first. And if that means going away and like taking a look at those first, or whether we tackle that, that's kind of up to you. I feel like that's something really important. That's not an agency saying you're not ready. It's just saying like, we need to sort this first. It's fine. It's not a bad thing.
And there's value in having that. I think, you know, you just need to know from an expert sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Which you might not have known before, so.
No, agreed.
Yeah, I think budget is the only other thing perhaps that you need to just understand. Are they actually affordable? Can I pay this agency to deliver what I need? And not looking at it as simply a cost but an investment.
Completely.
And, you know, you can't, it's almost investing to save/grow, because you know, you can't expect just to freeball it and not spend any money to get results. There's always going to be a bit of upfront higher costs and then ongoing, and it's always that question of, well, how long do I need to market for? Well, how long do you want to generate results for? You know, so
how long do you want to succeed?
Hopefully forever. So I think cost, are they within your marketing budget?
And if you don't have that marketing budget, you need to be, I guess, have those frank conversations of what you need and then what you need to prioritize, and then ascertain that from there. But I feel like a lot of the time we'll give people ballpark costs, and we'll cover everything that we've spoken about, for example, and then someone might come back to us after they've read that and say, actually, we've only got X amount to spend. And then you think, okay, fine, that's fine, we can prioritize X, Y, Z. But it's sometimes you don't know that until you know what things cost. So it's hard to say sometimes what you think you need.
And actually on that note, with the cost thing, I think, you know, there's always that classic response of, I reached out to another agency and they were so much cheaper. And it's kind of
the other way.
But then have they quoted against the same deliverables?
That's so
true. Have they gone to the same extent of, you know, are you getting them side by side?
Or have they given you an hourly?
And have they been granular in terms of what they're actually delivering for you? Because if you're that's a really good point actually, I think, to say, is that if you're reaching out to multiple agencies, which actually most, you know, everyone does.
And as you should. Really.
You should. Then you should really try and be as clear as possible once you've had perhaps that initial conversation to agree, okay, what are the deliverables, what are my expectations? You can
translate,
kind of put that into a bit of a document almost, and then send that to other agencies as well to kind of quote against the exact same on, because otherwise you're kind of leaving anomalies in the air and just letting an agency.
And we could be writing proposals for different things, and then how are you meant to compare them?
Yeah.
So
if the brief isn't consistent, then obviously the quotes aren't going to be.
No, completely.
And naturally, you kind of, when you speak to different agencies, especially if you are reaching out to maybe a specialist one, a full service one, then their remit's going to be different.
Completely.
So they are maybe going to quote on more or less,
yeah,
depending on what that conversation was. So that's something to just be mindful of.
Yeah.
When
Definitely.
you are receiving quotes back, I think, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing we've kind of not nodded to yet is the experience.
Yeah.
Although we've said about like whether it's a sector specific like agency or full service, like have a look on their portfolios, like see if they've got any relevant work that they've done before, just to give you an idea of what's achievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable. The amount of times I look at agencies, I'm like, oh, I love that they did.
Yeah.
Like, it's just it's the best way, I think, in kind of gauging what's possible if you don't know.
Yeah.
So.
And even sometimes they can be a bit cryptic.
Yeah.
Like what the actual work entailed. So like, don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
Of what that work was, how you went about it.
Yeah, or how the extent of your involvement.
Yeah.
Because if you did PR for something, doesn't mean you did the campaign film.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So ask questions.
Yeah, I think that's the takeaway. Ask as many questions as you can.
Yeah, and people will be willing to help you.
Yeah.
I think that's the takeaway generally. If they don't want to answer the question, then do you want to work with them?
Yeah. I think the red flag is if they don't clearly communicate.
Yeah.
If they're not transparent, if they're a bit vague.
Yeah.
If they don't ask you the questions, because I think that's something as well, is when we have using us as an example, but if we have an initial call with someone, at that point we do want to find quite a lot of information out.
Yeah.
So
that's to streamline the process for them as well as us,
and assess if we're a viable fit, if we can deliver what they need, if we can put a proposal together that's going to be relevant and beneficial. But if you contact an agency and they aren't going into much detail with you, it kind of is a bit of a red flag for me, because it kind of shows that actually you're not going to that degree to learn really what's required and advise to the best of your ability.
Yeah, and perhaps they maybe think they're not the best fit for you.
Yeah.
Like subconsciously, so they... Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of agencies, though, if they didn't think it was the best fit and that perhaps you could be better elsewhere, a lot of them they'll just say it. So that's the other thing. It's not, and that's not a bad thing. They're saving you time. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's so true.
But I don't think that happens that often, really.
No.
I feel like a lot of people have that initial conversation anyway.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's any other red flags that people might need to spot.
One thing that I can think of is the length or detail of a proposal. When you do get to that stage, you've had your initial conversations, maybe you've had the budget conversation, or maybe you don't know yet, but you want a bit of an idea of what they would suggest. That detail in that proposal, because I think that's feedback we get, is that proposals are detailed and we spend time on them.
Yeah.
But we like doing that.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, I think that's things we've had before that, comparing them to others, perhaps maybe sometimes some are more detailed than others. So
yeah.
Assess those, put them side by side.
Yeah.
It's not always about cost.
No. Yeah, it's about the detail and what they're hoping to deliver. And
I
think sometimes it depends on how well an agency communicates, but for us, say we like to go into detail, to be as comprehensive as we can, so there aren't, to try and avoid any questions that they might have.
Don't talk to us again. Never ask us questions.
No, but just so they don't read it. And
we don't want to leave unknowns, basically.
Yeah, or think they've finished reading it and they're like,
now what?
Yeah, but what does that even mean? Or I don't know what option to pick. Or how do I know if that's right for me?
Yeah,
you want to have them read that proposal and think, great, I know exactly what they can offer me. This is how much it's going to cost. This is what I could achieve. Some agencies might not be as clear in doing that.
Yeah. And then I think but it's so difficult. Some businesses might see the value in just a quick one. Yeah. Like to just...
A package.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, because we don't offer direct packages for everything, because everything we do is so bespoke and a package wouldn't apply to everyone. Yeah. So obviously, but yeah, some agencies do work on more package based.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, for me personally, I just look sometimes at packages and I'm probably a bit biased anyway. Well, I definitely am, because I'm in the industry, but you kind of pick apart what that actually includes and what does that mean. I can pay for a social media plan, but what's the benefit of it?
Yeah, so true.
sometimes I think that's what's missing, is sometimes agencies might just say, oh, I can help you with all these things.
Mm-hmm.
But then the client's still sat there wondering, but what am I going to get from that?
Yeah.
So I think it's communicating not just the channels, but what's the result.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think, a lot weighs on your initial conversations.
Yeah.
Kind of with an agency. And that's, I mean, talking to someone's the best way to gauge if you're going to work well together. So,
yeah,
I don't think there's anything else that I can think of.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah, I think it's just taking a step back, like approaching as many as you deem fit, whether that's full service, specific agent, like industry sector ones. And then, taking a complete step back and assessing everything once you've had everything back or had those initial conversations.
Yeah.
And then going from there.
Yeah, definitely. So I haven't got anything else really to add.
No,
I think we've covered it, and hopefully, giving people an idea of why they should have an agency and what the different types are, and hopefully why you should need one and what you need to evaluate before you get in touch. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and just have a think first, I think, is the most important thing. Figure out what you need, or figure out maybe what you don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's the...
yeah. Exactly
those kind of sore points. Figure those out.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, get someone in to have a look.
Yeah, you might need a consultant.
You might need a consultant session. We do those too.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, cool. Well, I mean, if you have any questions, let us know. Or if you can think of any more podcast topics you want to hear from us, let us know. Add it to the list.
Yeah, please. Let us know.
Yeah, we hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks. Bye. Bye.